Okay, so welcome to post-regulation and legislative mandates. There's a lot of information on this, and because we only have 2 hours, including questions and answers, had to narrow it down a bit, and we'll go over what we're covering. But I want to thank you for being here. We had looked forward to putting this on in person, and as you know, that didn't happen. We had a lot of our training manager courses, training administrator courses that have been canceled due to COVID. So we're really happy to still be able to provide this to you, even though it's in a webinar format. So thank you for being here. I'd like to introduce Melanie Dunn. Melanie, can you say hi?
Hello, everyone.
There's Melanie. She's my first lovely assistant. And Dan Schmidt, are you there? Okay, my second lovely assistant is shy, okay? So we have a lot of information we're gonna share, and this may be some of you out there, even if you're a man. It's like with the regulations and mandates, and it can be very confusing because there's so many of them. So hopefully today when you leave, you won't be grabbing your head and pulling your hair out, okay? Hopefully it'll be made better for you. So in the beginning, I'd just like to do a little bit of housekeeping about Zoom. I know some of you are probably pretty familiar with it, but let's just go over some of these buttons because you will be using some of them during today's training. So on the audio, and that's up here, can you guys see my cursor? I'm not sure if you can see my cursor. Okay, you can. Okay, good. So good. When you came in, you were automatically muted. So if you're not speaking, please keep yourself muted. Video, please keep your camera on. It's part of what's required for post-certification and post-credit. And then this participant button, which you will have on the bottom probably of your screen, there's nonverbal reactions. And you're also going to be using that to change your name. Some of you are not logged in under a full name, and we're going to change that, okay? And this is what it looks like. So if you see these 3 little dots here, if you click on that, it's going to open up this other window where you have more options. We're going to be using yes and no today on some true and false questions. And so here we go. Chat, post comments and questions. We're going to answer the questions unless it's directly related to how do I use Zoom? How do I do this? If it's about content, we're going to answer them at the end. Okay, we're going to keep about 15 minutes for questions. And reactions are nonverbal reactions, and they're this little icon right there, and they look like that. Okay, so that's just kind of a brief overview about the buttons that you can be using today. So what I'd like for you to do, because I looked at some of your names, and it's not your full name. So what we like you to do is to, if that's the case for you, is to add your first and last name. Change it so it's you, the name that you've registered for this class, okay? So the first thing you want to do is to go to participants. Participants button, that'll be the first thing. And the second thing you do is next to your name, on the right of your name, is to click the rename button. So in this sample, it says Ryan B. We would like your first name and your last name, okay? So you're gonna click rename, and then you're gonna type in your full name and then okay. All right, and so that will help Mel and Dan determine who's online with us today and who's attending the training. Okay, so I'll just wait about 30 seconds. To everybody does that. And Mel and Dan, if during the presentation you see that there's people who haven't changed it yet, if you can just shoot them a private message in the chat and have them updated, that would be great.
Will do.
Okay, so I'm moving along. So a little bit of overview about what we're going to be doing today. This was sent out, so you probably know that today we're going to be talking about not just post-regulation training mandates, but also legislative mandates. And we're going to talk about a few other post-regulations and resources that are going to help you do your job as a training manager. Keep on top of that. Okay. So we're going to have a 5-minute break. just if you're ready for the break, just let me know. We're going to have a 15-minute Q&A period. And then we're going to have a survey evaluation at the very end, and I'll give you 5 minutes for that, even though I don't think you'll need all 5 minutes. So is my voice loud enough for everybody? Is it okay? Just give me okay, thanks.
All good.
Okay, thank you. And so this presentation, like all the other ones that we're putting on in the symposium, is being recorded today. So I'm going to do a pre-test polling. And these are 5 questions. I'm going to put the poll up. If I can, because I'm not the, oh, it says my polling session is inactive because I'm logged in from another device. Okay, I don't even know what that means, but we're going to just move along. If I can. All right, so here's our agenda. We're going to start off with the post minimum standards for training, and then we'll move into some of the other topics. So we're going to be talking about the peace officer, reserve officer, dispatcher, instructor training, and the minimum content for those instructor courses. Post regulations are in the California Code of Regulations. So if you comply with post mandates, you're complying with the law. If you're out of compliance with that, then you're out of compliance with regulation, with the law. Okay, so super important that you understand what the regulations say so that you have a chance of being in compliance with it. All right. Now we no longer link our regulations on our post website. We don't create our own. You can link from the website to Westlaw. And I have to tell you that the Westlaw formatting is kind of wonky. I don't really like it. When it was on our post website, it was easy to read, easy to tell which was a major topic versus a subtopic and a subtopic. But that's the way it is. So it goes directly to Westlaw, and you'll have the most up-to-date and accurate regulation because they get changed and updated often. Okay, and that's kind of what Westlaw looks like. All right, so where do you find these commission regulations? You find them on our website, and you go to publications on the very top. There's a publications tab up here, and that's going to open this up, and you can see there's a commission regulation. That's how you get to our regulations. I use it all the time. Okay, so let's get right into the minimum standards for training, and this is for peace officers. So you probably all know that they have to have basic training, right? Depending on what their assignment is, if they're with a sheriff's department, police department, they're probably going to need the regular basic course. If they're a state investigator, specialized basic course. PC 832, the only people that I'm aware of in our program that need only 832 are the coroner's offices, the coroner investigators. And of course, there's modular formats for the regular basic course. And if somebody is coming in from out of state and wants to be a peace officer in California, they can apply for a waiver, for a basic course waiver. So if they're a peace officer in Nevada, they want to come to California, they can apply for that so they don't have to take our regular basic course. There's also CPT requirements, continuing professional training, and that's every peace officer, including level 1 and level 2 reserve officers, has to have a minimum of 24 hours of post-qualifying training. And this PowerPoint is going to be available to you after. Okay, Post is going to be sending out an email, and this will be one of the documents that will be going out to you. So if you didn't want to take notes, you don't really have to because this will be provided to you. So our current cycle, as you know, ends on December 31st. Every agency in the post program is on the same 2-year cycle, okay? And that ends this year. The next 2-year cycle starts January 1st of next year and ends December 31st of 2022. If you're out of compliance this cycle, you can never make it up. You will always be out of compliance. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later. Okay, and this is regulation 1005, post regulation 1005. So true or false? And you're going to have to go to the participant button, right? And then yes or no. So yes for true, no for false. So get ready to play. The question is, or the statement is, peace officers and all levels of reserve officers require 24 hours or more of continuing professional training every 2-year cycle. True or false? Mel and Dana, I can't see all the participants, so if you can see if most people have answered that.
Okay, it's still adding up. So you got a few minutes.
Let me know, Mel.
Go ahead and allow a few more minutes.
Okay, so if you haven't answered it, please answer it because we're waiting on you. So yes, the statement is true. No, the statement is false. And you get there to the participant icon. Okay, so we have 219 people online with us today.
Looks like you have a fair amount, Karen.
Okay, so Mel, what did most people say on that? True or false? Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay, so the answer is false. Okay, and why is it false? Because only peace officers and reserve officer levels 1 and 2 need CPT training every cycle. Okay, I think it's a great idea if you have them to send your level 3 reserves to training, but it's not required by regulation. Remember, regulation is only minimum standards, okay? And your agency should be exceeding those, okay? Minimum standards. All right, so let's talk about the perishable skill program and communication training requirement, PSP and communications. So the
Karen, I accidentally muted you. Karen, I accidentally muted you.
Yes, I got that. Was I that bad already? So
No, it won't let me mute individually.
okay, so this says all peace officers except reserve officers and jail deputies below the middle management position has to have perishable skills and communication training. So middle management in most agencies are going to be the lieutenants, right? Sergeant is first line supervisor, middle management, lieutenant. So it's a supervisor of supervisors. If you can hear dogs growling, it's my 2 stupid dogs are playing. So I apologize for that. So the stupid dogs. Okay. Wow. Hang on, I'm trying to get this to go forward. I'm having a hard time. Okay, so these 4 topics make up the perishable skills and communication training requirements. So you need 4 hours in arrest and control, driver training or driver simulator, tactical firearms or force option simulator, and then another 2 hours in communication training. Now the first 3, you cannot complete those completely online. On the other hand, the communication training, you can do that on the learning portal. So really there's not much reason for an officer, even through COVID, not to have that communications training, okay? Because it is on the learning portal. Now, recently, regulation was updated, and this was approved by the commission, that said instructors who teach any of those 4 topics can be exempted from that training mandate, okay, if they teach it within that same cycle. So for instance, if you are an arrest and control instructor, you taught the course in this cycle, your agency can get online on the EDI, Electronic Data Interchange. On the agency side, there's two sides. On the agency side, and submit to get you exempt from this arrest and control training. What it will do is when you run a compliance report, it won't show that instructor needs to take the training. It's not going to give them the 4 hours. They're still going to have to take 4 hours of training in another course, right? Another topic. But they will not have to take arrest and control. And that's really an agency decision. I would kind of caution agencies from doing that every cycle. You know, you want them to have some kind of training where they're a student. And certainly if they're instructors, you want to send them to updated training or instructor refresher training, but you can exempt them from that. Okay, here's another yes, no, true, false. Peace officers and level 1 reserve officers require PSP training every 2-year cycle. Mel, what do most people have on there?
Yes.
Okay. The answer is false. This is only for peace officers, okay? Only peace officers need perishable skills training. However, your reserve officers are wearing a uniform, right? They're carrying a firearm. Depending on the level, they have the ability to make arrests, and they may be driving a department car. So my recommendation is to send them to PSP training, even though they don't need it by regulation. Send them, because they'll still get CPT credit for that, right? Because reserve level 1 and 2 need CPT credit. Okay. Okay, so let's continue on. If you're with the district attorney's office, you have to take the transition course within 12 months. If you are a school police officer with a K through 12 school or community college district, you have to take the campus law enforcement course within 2 years. If you are an airport peace officer, you have to take the aviation security course, because until you complete it, you do not have peace officer powers. Okay, so that's super important for any of you training managers that are associated or affiliated with an airport.
And if I can interrupt really quick,
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting a notification here via the chat that some audio issues are occurring. Is everybody having audio issues cutting in and out, or just a couple people?
No issues here.
No?
Okay, thanks.
Seems fine.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So
It
Dan, I
might
think
just-
I think it's isolated. Thanks.
Yeah, it might be that one person.
Okay, go away, Dan.
Thank you. Bye.
So,
Wow.
thank you so much, Dan. So for rifle and shotgun training, and I put these 2 asterisks here because Post will track these other courses for you. If you run a compliance report in EDI, they'll track the district attorney, campus law enforcement, and aviation security course. But we do not track the rifle and shotgun training, even though it's a mandatory training, right? The short barrel is required by the penal code. The long barrel is required by Post. So in order to possess any kind of rifle, you have to have completed a rifle course. But we don't track it. So you have to track it yourself. If you're an agency and your officers are able to carry or possess a rifle, they have to have had that 16-hour training. The shotgun training is also a requirement, but that's in the academy, so you don't really have to worry about that one. Okay, so please, one of the things you need to do when you go back is to make sure that all your officers, if they carry a rifle, have had that training. Okay, another mandatory course is a supervisor. And so if you have somebody, and these are normally sergeants, first line supervisor, but they might have a different title. In some of my state agencies, they're not called sergeants, but generally they are. So any peace officer promoted, appointed, or transferred to that first level supervisory position has 12 months before or 12 months after to take that course. Okay, so really they have 2 years, but it's 12 months before and 12 months after. And similarly, the management course has that same time limit, 12 months before, 12 months after, for everybody who's at that middle management, which is generally a lieutenant. Okay, and that's regulation 1005. So I'm going to talk a little bit about reserves. There's 3 levels of reserve. Level 3 is the lowest level in that they have the lowest level of training, and they also have limited duties, okay? So level 3 reserve officers has to be under supervision, and their duties are not likely to result in physical arrests. So they're going to be supervised, but they can transport prisoners without immediate supervision. Okay, so that's the lowest level. The next level of reserves is level 2, and they can do general law enforcement assignments, also supervised, but they can do stuff, right, where they could have to make a physical arrest. They can also do level 3 work. And level 1 is our highest level of reserve officers. And they can work alone, and they have the same training and they have the same duties as full-time regular officers. Okay, and I'm going to show you another slide here. So here are the minimum entry-level requirements. The regular basic course can be taken in 3 modules. Module 3, then 2, then 1. And so a level 3 reserve needs a module 3. A level 2 reserve needs module 3 and module 2. And a level 1 needs all 3 modules or the regular basic course. And they also need field training. And in my agencies, every once in a while, I'll see that they've hired a reserve and they've appointed them to a level in which their training doesn't qualify them to be. So for instance, if somebody took module 3 and an agency appointed them as a level 2 officer, that's not appropriate. Okay, that's an illegal appointment, because somebody who had module 3 only cannot do the duties of a level 2 reserve. So be kind of careful with that if you have, anything to do with hiring. So we know, because we already covered this, that reserve level 1 and 2 needs 24 hours of CPT every 2-year cycle. They do not need perishable skills, although I think it's a great idea and I would recommend it. And if it's a reserve officer that's working on a campus, K through 12 or community college, they need to also have completed that campus law enforcement course. Okay, and this is regulation 1007, which deals with reserves. Okay, we're going to move on and talk about dispatchers, public safety dispatchers. So dispatchers need one of 2 things. They either need to have to complete the basic course within 12 months or possess a public safety dispatcher certificate. Okay, so they need one or the other. And public safety dispatchers and their supervisors are required to have 24 hours of CPT training every cycle. Okay? And that's regulation 1005. So not all post-training qualifies for CPT. Okay? And if you look at this list, these are the entry level or basic courses that you need for a position. I've had, for instance, Public safety dispatchers have gone to the basic course, which is mandated. And then they they think, okay, I've got all these hours. I don't need to take any CPT training because I'm like totally maxed out, right? I've got this huge class that I've completed, but that does not count towards their CPT. Okay, so just keep in mind that not everything is going to get you CPT credit. So let's talk a little bit about the minimum standards for instructors. Regulation 1070 has a list of specialized subjects that says in order to teach a particular topic, the instructor has to have completed the instructor training course or the equivalency. And for equivalency, for instance, if Regulation 1070 says, and it does, that in order to teach a firearms course, you have to have the firearms instructor course. And one of your instructors has gone to the FBI firearms instructor course. You could potentially say that was an equivalency and not send them to a post firearms instructor course. The course must be a foundational course. It cannot be like a firearms update or firearms refresher course. It has to be that foundational instructor course. And when you're looking at an equivalency, say that FBI firearms course, Regulation 1082 has a list of topics that must be in a firearms instructor course. And so you'll get that FBI's firearms instructor outline and you will compare it with the minimum content requirements in 1082 to make sure it truly is an equivalency. Okay. So I have a learning activity for you. So if you can log into the POST website, post.ca.gov, and I'll wait for you to do that. Okay, and then you're gonna go to regulations. And then you're gonna go to Regulation 1070 and find out what instructor course is required to teach arrest and control. You're gonna write your answer in the chat room and I'm just gonna flip over just in case you need help, right? To get to the regulations, you go to publications and then regulations. And then you'll have to click on regulations again. It'll give you the list of regulations and you'll end up scrolling down to 1070. Okay, and then I'm gonna flip this so that you can see what the question is. And you're gonna write your answer in the chat room. So once you're in Regulation 1070, look for the arrest control techniques course. So Mel, can you let me know when it looks like everybody's typed something in the chat room? Hey, Jason, I can't see your video. If you can put it on, please.
Folks are still typing in the answer.
Okay.
Okay, it slowed down some. You can go ahead, Karen, if you'd like.
Okay. Do most people have something written there?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. All right, so instructors for arrest and control need either the arrest and control instructor or defensive tactics instructor. So did everybody get that right, Mel? Okay, good.
Sorry. Yes.
So Regulation 1070 is really helpful. If you're starting to develop a new course, what I would recommend is that you go in there and you take a look at if your course topic is listed in 1070, and then make sure you have an adequate number of instructors that have completed the required course before you proceed, right? Because I mean, the first thing you need are instructors. Okay, so we have finished the post minimum standards for training. And now we're going to bounce over to legislatively mandated training. So you can find this information on the post website under the training tab, scroll to peace officer and legislatively mandated training. Okay, it's also in another place. Same training tab, same peace officer, but under refresher training, and it's in a third place. Okay, specialized training requirements. So training, peace officer, and specialized training requirements. And these are just a few of them. There's a lot of them. Some you may be familiar with, but I recommend that you take a look at those three places and see which of those apply to your peace officers. So we all know, I think, that we need 8 hours every 2 years for certain peace officers. And the peace officers listed in the penal code are city and district police officers, sheriffs, marshals, and CHP. Okay, we have a lot of other people in the post program that are peace officers, but they do not fit this particular job title. Okay, so first aid CPR AED training is a great idea. I think you can use it at home, right? In case a family member needs it. If you're out in public, you can certainly have the skills to use it, even though you're not required to take it. We have on the learning portal where you can take the classroom portion of this course, and then your agency can put on the skills portion. So you can earn it by not spending 8 hours in a classroom. Okay, the next one is racial profiling. This is required every 5 years for every law enforcement officer. It doesn't matter what your job description is. If you're a peace officer, then you're going to need that according to the penal code. Currently, the only presenter that's putting on the racial profiling instructor course, the train the trainer course, is the Museum of Tolerance in Southern California. So we've been informed recently that they're going to start picking up their training at the beginning of next year. So I think that's really a holdup for some people, is having the qualified instructor to put this on. Okay, bloodborne pathogens is a Cal OSHA requirement. If your agency's not doing it annually, then look into that, all right? See what you need to be doing. Now, the first aid CPR and racial profiling, Post has certified those courses. Bloodborne pathogens, if you're putting on a 10-minute refresher training, we're not going to certify that because our training needs to be a minimum of 2 hours. Okay, domestic violence complaints. If you are an officer below supervisory rank and you're in patrol, you need to have this training every 2 years. Okay, so if you're with a police department or sheriff's department and you're not doing that for your officers, that's one of the things that you can look into when you get back to work. Okay, it's super important. And then finally, we just found out recently because of an inquiry to me that this human trafficking training is not listed in our website, and we're working on adding it to the legislatively mandated training. So we learn a lot from the field, and I appreciate those inquiries. But this says you need 2 hours of training within 6 months of assignment to field or investigative duties for every law enforcement officer. Okay? So field or investigative duties, if somebody's been out there for 5 years and has never had this, my advice is, okay, you missed a 6 month, but get them trained, get them caught up to the training, okay? All right, here we go. Check what you learned. Yes or no, true or false. All peace officers in the state must complete the first aid CPR AED refresher course every 2 years. How's it going, Mel?
Doing good.
Okay, are most people saying yes or no?
It looks about half.
Okay. Okay, so the answer is no. These are only for, that training is mandated for specified officers, okay, according to the penal code. All right. So let's talk a little bit about COVID, because that has really affected how people are putting on the course, when they're putting on the course. So I'd like to refer to Post Bulletin 2020-14, and I'll just give you a little summary about what it says. Okay, if an agency is unable to comply with the training mandates, the post-training mandates, maintain a detailed record of the reasons for non-compliance. And I know that supervisory courses, management courses were canceled sometimes in the middle of a session, right? They completed 1 week and it was canceled and they never got to complete the second week. There's a lot of the PSP training, arrest and control, driving and firearms that were either canceled, put on hold, or rescheduled. So keep track of every person who is out of compliance with the mandated training, which the cycle ends on December 31st, and why. So if they were scheduled for training and it was canceled, note that. When was the training? Who was putting it on? If in your region you can't find anybody who's putting on arrest and control courses, document that. And develop a plan to return to compliance next cycle. Okay, so we all hope that COVID is going to be under control. We're going to have a vaccine. We're going to have better treatment. And we will be able to return to some normalcy regarding training. So we come out every year and we try and visit every agency every year doing a compliance audit. During that time, your regional consultant is going to want to have a conversation with you about why so many people were out of compliance and what your plan is to get them trained. Okay. And the bulletin also says, seek the advice of your legal counsel. Post cannot say, hey, you don't need to take that arrest and control class because of COVID. We don't have the authority, unless an exemption is written into the regulation, we don't have the authority to give exemptions for it. So we recommend that you seek legal advice. Okay, we're going to talk about other post mandates. The basic certificate is super important. And I put this in red. It says you have to have your basic certificate in order to continue to exercise peace officer powers. And this applies to every officer listed in PC 831 except a sheriff, elected marshal, or custodial deputy. And let's look at PC 830.1 and see what the definition is. So unless you are specifically exempted in PC 832.4b, you are listed in PC 832.1a, you need to have the basic certificate at the completion of probation. All certificates now are requested online. You need access to the agency site of EDI to be able to do that. The agency can start it, and I really recommend that agencies do that because you can control it better if you start it on your end and send it over to the officer, and the officer will need to complete it and send it to post. In my experience, if you rely on the officer to start it, it's much more difficult that way. So start it, you know, in the admin area and where you're tracking everybody. And just a reminder, this is super important because if you don't get that submitted, and Post is processing them very quickly because we know how important it is, and the certificates unit is prioritizing the basic certificate. They don't take very long to get that out, but it's really incumbent on your agency to get that submitted, or your officers are out there enforcing the law, making arrests, perhaps using force when they don't have peace officer powers and they don't have a legal right to do that, okay? So this is super important. All right, so we talked about the specified officers that were identified in penal code. If you're in the post program and you weren't one of those other officers, you are still required to have a basic certificate upon completion of probation. You won't lose your peace officer powers if you get it in late. That's not an issue, but you'll still need to put in for that. And we have compliance reports that'll show if you're out of compliance, okay? So as training managers, if you can get access to the agency side of EDI, you can run compliance reports that will show you this. Okay, and finally, I'd like to talk a little bit about police chiefs and persons in charge. So any head of an agency, a local agency, shall possess the basic certificate within 2 years. And we generally see this with chiefs who are coming from out of state and they're coming to California. So this 2 years will give them time to get a basic course waiver or to get whatever training they need. Okay, true or false? Every peace officer with an agency in the post program shall obtain the post basic certificate upon completion of probation in order to continue to exercise peace officer powers. True or false, yes or no? Okay, so Mel, can you take a look at the answers and see if everybody's pretty ready on that?
Looks like the bulk of them are true.
Okay. Excuse me. The answer is false. And it only applies to officers in 830.1A. Okay. Moving along, let's talk about the field training program. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so field training program says that any department which employs peace officers and level 1 reserve officers shall have a post-approved field training program. And it has to be approved by post and on file. So if you change your program, you change it up a little bit, it has to come to post for approval. And field training officers have to have minimum requirements, and they have to have the field training officer course, and they have to have regular updated training that's listed in regulation. Program exemptions. I have some state agencies in my region that do not provide general law enforcement uniform patrol services. They can get an exemption from post. And you write an exemption that says, hey, we don't provide general law enforcement uniform patrol services. We would like an exemption from having to have a field training program. The other exemption is if a department hires only lateral officers that already have a basic certificate or have FTO training. Then if somebody's already completed an FTO course, they may not need to complete a full FTO course again with a new agency. So you can look into that. Okay. Regulation 1004. Okay, let's talk a little bit about course certification. Course certification is found in a bunch of regulations, 1051 to 1059. New courses require training needs assessment. You have to show that there's an unmet training need for that particular course. My recommendation is contact your post-regional consultant first. Run your idea by your consultant because they can best help you prepare the training needs assessment. They can best tell you, this course is already being put on everywhere in this region. You're going to have a really hard time certifying it, or they can say, hey, yeah, this is a new and cool idea. Here's what you should do. Here's how you survey training managers or agencies to see if they'll send people to your course. Okay, so the first thing really is to contact your regional consultant. Once your course is certified, you have to follow that expanded course outline. And I think it's really hard for training managers because you're not out there attending the training class. You're not teaching it, right? You're the training manager. For most part, you don't know what they're doing out there. And there are some expanded course outlines that are perhaps 15 years old and have never been updated. So how do you know as a training manager that what was certified in expanded course outline is still what is being taught? You really won't know unless you go out there. Post has a quality assurance program where 2 trained instructors will come out. They'll give you notice. They're not going to jump in, and surprise you. They'll give you notice and say, hey, we want to come out. We want to look at this training course. Could you provide us with a couple of chairs and tables in the back of the room? And the quality assurance program will review. There's 2 documents, and if you want them, you're welcome to them. They're on the Training Manager Network. But one of them evaluates the instructor, and the other one evaluates content of the course, including, are they following the hourly distribution schedule? And does the expanded course outline, are the instructors following the ECO? And then they provide written feedback to the instructor or instructors and also to the presenter. Okay. Post has already also started this quality assurance program for webinar training because we have a lot of courses that have transitioned from classroom to webinar training. So they are also visiting remotely some of the training courses provided through Zoom or Teams. Instructors have to be pre-approved in EDI, right? As part of the core certification package, they have to be pre-approved. There is an exemption. There's like an emergency or an exigent instructor. And what that is say you've got a class going on, you've got it scheduled, it's in the morning, your instructor's on the way to class and gets in a car accident, cannot make it to training, or perhaps wakes up with the flu, cannot make it to training that day. You can grab another instructor, give them the lesson plan, and have them teach that course. Okay, and then when you enter the roster, you can use the exigent instructor and type their name in and type in why, scheduled instructor woke up sick, couldn't make it in. But be very careful, because if any of the courses that you use this for are listed in Regulation 1070, right? The specialized topics where the instructor has to have that specialized topic instructor, like firearms instructor. You couldn't just pull anybody out of the office and say, hey, go teach this firearms instructor course, because they have to have the firearms instructor course. And so that's my only caveat, is make sure it's not one of the topics listed in Regulation 1070. And because if it is, you're better off canceling and rescheduling that class versus putting it on with an unqualified instructor. And we do run reports on unapproved instructors. So just to let you know. Presentations must be scheduled at least 30 days before the first day of the training. So if you are an agency that plans all your presentations out at the beginning of the year for the full year, just go ahead and schedule them all at the same time. You can always go in there later on if one is canceled, or maybe you change the location or you change the date. You can always go in there later and edit it. But at least it'll be scheduled. You won't forget. Okay, so that's by regulation, a minimum of 30 days before the first day of the training. The other date you need to remember are that rosters are due no more than 10 days after the training. And it's not 10 work days, it's just 10 days. And so if you don't get those in, Brenda from our office, I'll be all over you. So you got 10 days after the last day. So if you have a multi-day training, you want to do it on the last day. One thing also about rosters is that if you have somebody that missed more than 10% of your training, how did they make that up? And if you say yes, they passed a course, how did they make up that time? Did you give them a test? Did you have them write a paper? How did you sub them in? Maybe you're putting that training on again and they missed the last 3 hours. Did they sit in on another training and make up that last 3 hours? In the roster, you are going to have to type in, how did somebody who missed more than 10% of the class make up that time? Okay, except for the academy, they can only miss 5%. Got that? Okay, good. So, true or false? Rosters for post-certified training courses must be submitted no more than 10 days after the training. Okay, Mel?
No, you only have about 100 people respond. You have
Okay.
230
I'm
participants.
gonna wait, come on. We have 228 people. I'm waiting.
Okay, looks like a number of them are doing chat also, so you're probably good to move on.
Okay, good. So that is true. Let's talk a little bit about the webinar format, because I think even though it's not ideal, like I find it very difficult presenting this way or training this way. I think through COVID, we have very little options, right? Unless we want a huge room and we're gonna socially distance everybody 6 feet away, everybody wear masks through class. It's really difficult to put on classroom training now. So this webinar format has been in our regulation 1052 for a long time, but it really wasn't used until this year. So what it is, it's a live training, just like we're doing right now. It is not a tape training. Tape training will not earn CPT points, and we won't certify if it's taped. Live training. And then you have to include, in addition to all the other stuff required in the expanded course outline, you have to add additional information. How is trainee attendance and course completion verified? How are you going to have interaction with the instructor for questions or exercises? And how is the instructor going to evaluate the training performance and verifies that learning took place? And so in the expanded course outline for this course, I would say that we're using Zoom, that everybody's has audio and visual capabilities, right? That I am doing interaction with you by using those true-false quizzes, or having you go ahead and research the regulation and posting information in the chat room. Also at the end, I'm going to answer questions. And if I can make the poll work, we're going to have a test at the end. Okay, and that's how I'm going to evaluate training performance. Okay, so essentially, that was a nice little summary that you could just plug right in there. If you want more information about this bulletin is very helpful. It's got a certification guide and checklist. So it will help you certify a webinar course. And there's also two things that are with that. And one is, well, it's a course certification guide. And the other thing is if you do that ledge update, AB 392, that talks about the use of force, it's got a sample ECO that shows you how to turn that classroom training into a webinar format. Okay, so I think it's super handy, and I would recommend that you take a look at that. Some of your officers may still need training by the end of the year. If they need CPT credit, this is a two-hour course that you can put on through webinar. It's essentially built for you, okay? So another thing that's new is in the course catalog, you can search by typing in internet or webinar, and that will pop up all the courses that are scheduled, whatever time period you're going to look at, that is going to be presented through internet or through a live webinar. Okay, so instead of searching by, if you're looking for a mental health course, you can type in internet, and every course that has been scheduled for internet will pop up. Okay, so this is a good way to find training for your dispatchers or your officers, your reserve officers, without actually sending them to sit in a classroom. Okay, so that's pretty handy. Okay, so this is important because this is coming. We sent out a bulletin 2020-33, and whenever we have proposed regulatory action, a bulletin comes out, excuse me, and says, hey, we've proposed this. And so the commission approved this, and it's currently at the Office of Administrative Law. Once they approve it, it will go into regulation. Okay, so this is what it says. It's going to add a requirement that all post-certified courses be reviewed and recertified every 2 years. So I just brought up an example of a course that was maybe 15 years old, and the outline had never been reviewed or updated. That's going to end because every 2 years, your course is going to be forced into modification, and you're going to have to update it. Okay, and this will be on odd or even years. So if your course was certified in an odd year, it's going to come up on July 1st of next year. If your course was certified in an even year, it'll come up July 1st of 2022. July 1st is the start of our fiscal year. So it's going to be, and that's how we certify courses on that fiscal year. So we've had discussions in the office with that, because that's going to be a lot of courses going to be put in modification. If you wanted to work on that earlier, between January and July 1st, and your course is updated, it won't come up for mandatory recertification because we will have already worked with you to update that course. Okay, so for my region, Sacramento County, San Joaquin County, and all the state agencies, I recommend they do that starting January 1st. I have the most courses of all the consultants. Melanie's laughing or smiling, cruel woman. But so it's going to take me a long time to get through those courses. And if you're looking at putting them on, get them in early, get them in and approved early. So, I mean, I'm happy to work with you on that. Okay, a bulletin will be coming out to just let everybody know once this is passed. Okay, so why don't we take a 10-minute break and then we'll talk about some of the resources. Okay, so you're good with getting, stopping your video right now. I'm gonna mute mine. Have a nice break. So everybody can see my screen?
Yep.
Yes, okay, good. So let's talk a little bit about post resources. We went over a lot of stuff that you have to do, but here's some resources for you. So the first one I have on here is the post website. As you know, you can link to a bunch of stuff, including the bulletins, which come out every time there's a regulation change. It comes out and notifies you of important things that's coming down the road, proposed changes. So really, I think if you're not already signed up down here for these email alerts and newsletters, I recommend that you sign up for that, because you'll get the bullet. You can pick whatever you want, but definitely you want the bulletins. Monthly reports come out and has information about what post is working on, what kind of meetings we've had, just so you can plan on certain things coming down the road. And it also has, I think is really valuable, an update on the legislative bills that are pending. So every month we'll update that. And I think that's a good resource for you. We mentioned the course catalog today that you can search now by internet or webinar, but certainly that's a good place for you to find any courses that you can send your people to. The Learning Portal is also a really good resource. We are taking these training videos that we used to send out in DVDs and streaming them on the Learning Portal. So for you as training managers, what you need to know if you have somebody who takes, what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, it's a self-paced course on the Learning Portal. You do not have to submit the roster. The system will automatically award and update the person's profile with the appropriate training, okay, once it's completed. Excuse me. But if you are on the Learning Portal and you are watching a video that we used to issue in DVD format, you are going to have to manually enter the roster for that particular video. These videos are meant to be facilitated. The only one, though, that needs an instructor, that has a particular instructor course, is the racial profiling videos. That you have to have by 1070, right? The instructor courses, somebody who teaches that has to have the racial profiling training provided by the Museum of Tolerance in order to teach that. Under publications, we recently came out with two things. One is the de-escalation guidelines, which I think would be very valuable if you haven't taken a look at that, or if you haven't shared it with your de-escalation trainers. I recommend you do that. And the other one is a safety plan. We've updated our safety plan. And the cool thing that I like about it is at the very end, it's got sample safety plans for firearms, driving, just the most common courses, okay? So check out the safety plan. We also have law enforcement resources, including the agencies that are in the post program, how many officers, how many reserves, and there's also a link to nationwide data. EDI, there are two sides to EDI. One side is the presentation side, and that's all the course certification, right? And each side needs a different form to request access that should be signed and approved by your agency head. So we got the presenter side, and then we have the agency side, and I'll be going over more of that. But another resource that I don't think is used often enough is a training manager network. Okay, so here's our website, and here's how you can find DVD and web-based training that meets legislative or post mandates. Okay, so training, peace officer, and then down here, post-developed DVD and web-based training that meets mandates. And it's a 2-page document. This is just the first of 2 pages. But you can see that by looking at it, you can get tactical communications, those 2 hours that were required, either through self-paced or through videos that need to be facilitated. So there's 2 ways to get that outside the classroom. The domestic violence, we talked about that mandate. Remember that officers assigned to patrol have to have that every 2 years. So it's a self-paced training on the learning portal. You don't even have to put a class on. Dependent elder abuse, first aid, CPR. So there's a bunch of other stuff on there. And the human trafficking course is also available on the learning portal, that training that's mandated. Okay, so that's a pretty handy guide for you, 2 pages. So let's talk a little bit about EDI reports. What can you get out of that? How can that help you? The first one is the agency roster. Whenever someone is appointed as a peace officer, or if you have reserve officers, or if your dispatchers are in the post-participating program, you have 30 days, your agency has 30 days to enter them as appointed using the notice of appointment termination. That's also done through EDI. So your agency roster is based on what your agency has entered. If somebody leaves the agency, whether they were retired or just transferred, or maybe they were terminated, you have 30 days to take them out of EDI and to show that they left. If, say there was a mistake in a name or a date, you need to fix it when you find it. If you have an officer who was terminated because, terminated for whatever reason, gets their job back, right? They go through arbitration, they appeal, they got the job back. You need to notify Post about that and also send the order reinstating the officer to their prior position. So the roster is a good thing. You just have to make sure it's updated. And part of what we do when we come out and visit your agency every year is we'll ask for an internal agency roster and we'll compare it to what's in EDI. And we try and make them aligned. And if they're not, we'll ask you to fix it. Okay, so you can get into profiles. And the profiles contain dates of employment, who they were employed with, when they were hired, when they left, why did they leave. Also contains certificates. So if you've got somebody that has a basic certificate or any advanced certificates, those are all listed on the profile, as well as all post-certified training courses. So compliance reports, I think these are really good as a training manager. If you want to see, because you know we're coming to the end of the cycle, you can run reports to see what peace officers need their basic certificates, what peace officers need the supervisor course or the management course. You can run CPT reports to see who still needs what training for the end of the cycle. You can also do the same thing for reserve officers and for dispatchers. Okay, so those are really handy. I already mentioned notice of appointment termination. And this is the agency side where if your agency wants to give your PSP instructors training exemptions, this is the side that you do it on. This only works for those 4 courses, okay? Arrest and control, firearms, driving, and communications. It doesn't exempt them from, if they're a first aid CPR instructor, they still have to take the class, okay? This isn't, because it's not a post mandate. This only applies to those 4 PSP topics. That's it. You can apply for certificates, not just the basic certificate, but all higher level certificates. And one thing I want to bring up about certificates is an officer, dispatcher, reserve can only apply for a certificate while they're working for your agency. Once they leave, Not do that. Ooh, did you hear like a weird reverberation? Anyway, once they leave your agency, they cannot later ask for those certificates. Okay, so that's super important while they're with you that they put in for what certificates they are due. There's an officer with an agency who left, did not have his basic certificate, was trying to get a job with another agency. Their requirement was you have to have a basic certificate. Even though he was eligible, he hadn't put in for it. His agency didn't remind him about it, and he couldn't get that job because he could not apply later to post and get that certificate. So super important. You can help your people out by keeping it, updated on that. I just mentioned that you can see what certificates they awarded and what date they got them. And SLI, Supervisory Leadership Institute, all applications now go through the agency side of EDI. So that's all done electronically. And you can take a look at your monthly training reimbursements because now reimbursements are all processed electronically, right, through ETRRs. So you can take a look at what you've been reimbursed, and you can also take a look at unclaimed reimbursements. Okay, but just a word of caution, just because it's listed on there doesn't mean you're entitled to reimbursement. You have to take a look at it and check out the plan and whether or not your officers are eligible for that. Okay. And reserve officers are not eligible for reimbursements, okay, which is probably one reason they don't have to do PSP. Okay, so there's the EDI reports. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to, if Mel and Dan can read some of the questions. Once I'm done reading the questions, if you can ask me that, just unmute yourself and ask a question once I'm done with these written ones.
Okay, the first one's from Gregory. Can anyone answer why lieutenant and above are exempt? Seems ridiculous that the decision makers are exempt from the basic requirements.
Gregory, I totally agree with you. I think they should be setting the example for you, especially if they're wearing a uniform, they're carrying a gun, they have powers of arrest, but that is optional. And that happened way before I came to post, like 15 years ago. So I don't know why that is, it just is. But if you're a training manager, perhaps you're able to encourage them to do some training. I know my old agency, I was with Honolulu Police Department, and they'd take all the commanders and we'd all have to go down to the range together, which I thought was kind of silly that we should be going with our staff, right? To show a good example and to participate in training with them, but that's just not the way it was. So my short answer, I don't know.
Okay, Jackie Porter asked, does principal policing cultural diversity count for racial profiling training?
No, it does not. Although they seem similar, they are completely different topics. And so if you go to the principal policing instructor course, that does not qualify you to teach racial profiling. Okay, so just be aware of that before you sign up for it. I think it's great instructor training, and you certainly want to bring principal policing training to your agency, but the only place that puts on the instructor training for racial profiling is the Museum of Tolerance. And that's how it is right now. It may change, but that is the only place.
From Mike Short, so any lateral who has completed a field training program doesn't need to go through field training with our agency?
They may be able to go through a shortened version, but that's in our basic training bureau. We have somebody that is assigned to the program manager for field training. I recommend that you contact them.
CD Castillo, what kind of documentation is needed for the PSP instructor exemption?
Okay, so when you get into EDI, if you have access to the agency side, there's a tab on top that says personnel. If you open that personnel tab up, it will allow you to type in the instructor's name, post ID number, the date they taught the class, and what class they taught. And that's how you apply to get the exemption. Okay, so it's that. If you don't have access to that, you may want to request it.
And here's another one from Joshua. Another rifle question. If they go to a department course that is not post-certified, is there a way of showing equivalency?
Okay, so I'm not sure if you're talking about the instructor course or if you're talking about the 16-hour mandate. And the
I have a bunch of laterals from San Jose PD who are all in special units. They went to a rifle course in San Jose PD, all probably more than 5-6 years ago. But there's nothing in post EDI that they've been to the course. So do I have to send them to the 16-hour course even though they've been trained in the rifle, or?
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure it says in that penal code section that they have to go to a 16-hour post-certified course.
Okay,
Right,
thank you.
Karen.
Pardon, Maria?
You're right on that. It has to be post-certified.
Okay, so Joshua, I'm sorry, but it looks like you're going to have to reschedule them and send them to that. And this time, you know, I'm sure you'll get it certified where it shows up on their profile.
Yeah, and then I think I got an answer on the chat, but if somebody's been to the full SWAT school, do they still have to do the 16-hour class?
Okay, so those are two different trainings. And in my region, Region 3, none of my SWAT courses meet the 16-hour rifle training. The penal code and post-regulation is very specific about the minimum topics that have to be taught in that 16-hour rifle course. And those are often not addressed in the SWAT course, because one of the things the SWAT course often has is a requirement that you've already been trained in the rifle. Okay, so no, they're two different things. You could check with your regional consultant and have them pull up that core certification for the SWAT class to see whether or not, because theoretically they could embed those mandatory topics in that course and teach them for 16 hours. So theoretically they could do it. I would check with your consultant and have them look that course up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure.
That's all that I captured, but you have quite a bit in the chat.
Oh, okay. So can you read those to me?
Oh, okay. Are interim lieutenants exempt from PSP?
No.
Can you speak to dispatchers' reclassification as first responders? Will there be any changes for post-mandatory trainings?
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that one at all. I'm going to put up my email at the end of this presentation. If you can email me that question, and I will do some research and I'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
I got one question regarding the first aid CPR. It says, if our personnel complete the 8-hour online CPR AED training on the learning portal, how many hours does the hands-on training need to be?
Okay, so that's a good question, and we get that a lot. You are completing the learning portal at your convenience, right? At your own pace. It's a self-paced course. It is not going to take you 8 hours. The skills portion of the course is not, there's no minimum time for it. There's a minimum content, right? You have to show that you can do certain skills. So there's no time. That course is really based on content. It's really different from the other courses that we have. And what's interesting about it is when you do the skills portion, as a training manager, you don't have to enter a roster, because the student is going to go back in there and say, yeah, I took the skills portion on this date, and the system will automatically update their profile. Anything more on that one?
Let's see.
Anything else?
I have one here. How do you find the list of personnel in EDI who have completed training videos?
Okay, so there you can become a learning portal administrator, and there's a form that's the title of the form, a learning portal administrator on the Post website under the Forms tab. If you get administrator rights, you can see who's doing what on the learning portal, and you can even assign people to complete certain training on the learning portal.
Here's another one. Museum of Tolerance is not hosting any courses. Any info on when they will get classes up and running so we can get instructors certified? They have 3 principal policing instructors.
Yes, so we did look into that. Our executive office did have conversations with the Museum of Tolerance. They are going to start putting on training at the beginning of next year. Okay, so in the meantime, what I recommend my agencies do is identify, like, say if you go to a LETMA or CAPTO meeting, a training managers meeting, find out who's got racial profiling instructors, get a list and help each other out by using each other's instructors to get that training done. Okay, but in the meantime, it's going to take a while for them to put the first course on next year.
Another one, if someone leaves patrol or investigations and works in admin for a while, do they still need to take human trafficking within 6 months?
Mel, I'm going to back up to the racial profiling question. Post is working on a self-paced course on racial profiling that will not need an instructor to facilitate a DVD. It'll be the officer on the learning portal, and they will be, it'll be interactive, and they will get the credit for racial profiling without having a racial profiling instructor participate in that training. And Mel, I'm sorry, if a person was temporarily assigned.
If someone leaves patrol or investigations and works in admin for a while, do they still need to do the human trafficking within 6 months?
That's a good question. Since there is no mandate for recurring training on that topic, right? It doesn't say every 3 years you have to have that training. I think it's a one and done, but to be sure, I'd say go talk to your legal advisor because and listen to whatever they say, because they're in a better place to interpret the law. Okay, thanks for that question.
How long are academy graduates exempt for PSP and CPT?
Okay, good question. So whenever a person is appointed an officer, a reserve officer, or a dispatcher, they are in a grace period during that 2-year training cycle. Okay, so you don't have to worry about them being out of compliance with PSP or CPT until the start of the next cycle. So if you had somebody that was hired this year, you don't have to worry about it until January 1st of next year. Then they'll start the new cycle, okay? Grace period.
If someone is out of compliance at the end of a training cycle, what does that mean? Question mark for the person and the department, short term and long term.
Okay, so I mentioned earlier that you can never make that up. So forever, you will be out of, as long as you're with that agency, you are going to be out of compliance with that 2-year cycle. You cannot go back and make that up. The consequences are and with COVID, this is a completely new thing. So we understand that there are going to be agencies out of compliance, but pre-COVID, if you had an agency that was out of compliance, didn't come up with a plan to get their staff into compliance, then that is something we'd have a conversation in post. Our bureau chief probably talk to your agency head. If you still, your agency still was not moving forward and getting people trained, then we'd have a discussion internally about asking you to leave the post program. And also, and this is, I'm really aware of, liability and protecting your officers and your dispatchers and your reserve by making them go to training, because a lot of them don't want to, right? You've got the frequent flyers that get out of training every 2-year cycle. You see the same people who haven't had it. But really, by doing that, your agency is at risk, right? You're not serving your communities as well as you could. And the officer and your other employees are at risk of higher liability, especially with those PSP courses, right? We know that those involve use of force issues and sometimes deadly force. And you want to be sure at least people meet minimum PSP standards. Some agencies, they're instead of just doing a 4-hour firearms or arrest and control, they have 8 hours or 12 hours or 16 hours. There's nothing stopping you from having more training, especially in those high-risk topics. So protect your people and make sure they go to those trainings.
Okay, Karen, you have about 15 minutes left. Did you want to have questions from the audience?
Sure. Does anybody have anything? Any questions? Okay. Here we go. We'll just move along. So I did have a pre-test that I wasn't able to give you, but we're going to have a post-test. So these are 5 questions. Melanie, go ahead and put the post-test up. So you all have to take it, by the way. How's it going?
You got about 78%.
70%?
78 have voted.
Oh, okay. So we're going to wait because we have 224 in class. So we'll wait.
Looks as if things have slowed down. So
Okay.
we're at about 86%, and I know some folks are not able to view using the video.
Okay. So Mel, can you share the poll results?
Sure. There you go.
Okay. I can't see it. So tell me what you see.
You can't see it? That's
Well,
interesting.
I can stop sharing and then I'll see it maybe.
Make it bigger.
No, I can't. Dan, can you see the poll?
I can, yeah, yeah, I can see each person.
Okay. So let's just go into the answers and we'll see how you did with that. Okay.
Okay, so are you able to see it, Karen, or no?
No, it's okay.
Okay,
I'll go
so
over
number 1 was all post-certified courses are eligible for CPT credit.
Okay.
48 answered true, 143 answered false.
Okay. So the answer is false. Remember, I showed that list of what are pretty basic courses, like the dispatcher basic or any of the basic courses, PC 832. Any of the foundational courses are not eligible by regulation, are not eligible for CPT credit. Okay, so the next one was how many hours of training, PSP and communication training for peace officers are required every cycle? Mel, what did you get on the answers?
8, the answer of 8 was 15%, 1% for 10, 14 was 29%, and 24 was 55%.
Okay, so it's 14 hours. Our CPT, continuing professional training, is 24 hours, but PSP and communication, arrest and control, driver, firearms, communication, those add up to a minimum of 14 hours that you need on those 4 topics, okay? Penal Code requires human trafficking training for every law enforcement officer assigned to field or investigative duties.
Every 2 years, 19%, every 5, 7%, within 6 months, 63%, and 12 months is 11%.
Okay, so at least on this one, we got the majority of the people got that one correct. Okay, good. When do peace officers promoted, appointed, transferred to first level supervisory position need to complete the supervisory course?
4% for 12 months before, 21% for 12 months after, and 76% for either 12 months prior or within 12 months.
Okay, good. So we did pretty good with that one. It's either 12 months before or 12 months after that appointment or assignment. Okay, if an agency has COVID concerns, peace officers are exempted from having to meet PSP training this cycle, which ends December 31st.
24% true, 76% false.
Okay, so for the 24% of you who answered true, that is wrong, okay? We are not able to exempt anybody from any training, okay? You're still required to meet that. The bulletin says document why you didn't meet it and come up with a plan on how you're going to get back into compliance, but no one is exempted from meeting PSP unless for instance, your agency does not have emergency equipment and vehicles, and your policy does not allow them to get into pursuits. By regulation, based on that, they can request an exemption from driver training, but it has nothing to do with COVID-19. Okay, it has to do with what the responsibilities and the duties are. Okay, so does anybody have any questions that were raised with the poll questions? No? Okay, moving along. So here's my contact. And here's the link to the evaluation that you will need to go and submit an evaluation for this course in order to get CPT credit. Mel is going to copy and paste this also into the chat room. So if you wanted to just copy and paste it and pump it in your browser, you can go ahead and do that. Mel, have you put it in there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. So thank you. I just want to thank you so much for the time that you spent with me and for participating. And your regional consultants are there to support you. So please reach out to them if you have questions or you're looking for particular training. This training I can do online again. So if you have people in your agency who weren't able to be here because they were at the other one, please let your regional consultant know and they will get in touch with me and we can work something out. Okay? Well, thank you. And when you're done, you can save yourself and enjoy the rest of the symposium. But I'll still be here if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Miss Karen.
Thank you, Sadie. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Hey, you know all this stuff. You could have taught it.
I don't. I think that your questions were Mensa level.
Hi, Sadie.
Hi.
So funny.
We'll talk soon.
Okay, bye. If nobody has any questions for us, we're going to be logging out of the meeting, but you can continue to do your evals, which we appreciate. So be safe, everybody.
Hold on, Karen. There's a question in the chat room. There's a couple of them.
Okay.
For first aid CPR, how soon after the online class do you have to do the hands-on practical?
Well, I think is it 6 months?
Yeah,
3 months?
6 months. 6 months.
6 months? Okay.
Yeah. There's another one. Do PSP hours also count towards CPT hours?
Yes.
Yeah. If someone is on workers' comp for an extended time, how do you document that with PSP?
You just, just keep a log of it. Some agencies have a folder per training cycle. And if somebody is deployed, right, in the military, somebody's on injured leave or maternity leave, they'll document the dates that they are out, they were out of work, and keep it in the file. Dan, anything else?
We still have 65 people in the room though, but no, there's no more.
Yeah, so I'm going to stop sharing, and then we're going to end the meeting. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.
Bye.